The Nets will look to avoid a three-game losing streak as they host the Knicks at the Barclays Center on Saturday night. Another big NBA Rivals Week matchup for Brooklyn. So let's talk with New York Post Nets beat reporter Brian Lewis. Brian, how you doing?
All right. How you been?
I've been good, man. Enjoying the NBA Rivals Week. It's been pretty interesting this week. And Brian, the Nets, they've struggled without Kevin Durant, right? They've lost 6 of 8 games. I think most people would have expected them to struggle offensively, but they've also struggled defensively. So how valuable is Durant to Brooklyn's defense?
He's underrated, but also irreplaceable. When you take a switchable guy and a 7-foot wingspan out of the defense, it changes what they can do. I mean, their scheme is still going to stay the same. They're still going to try to switch everything. They're still going to kind of be like a red coverage. But the fact of the matter is, he's top 10 in blocks. He makes Nick Claxton's job easier. When you take him out, they don't have anybody else that can do what he does defensively as a complement and support to Nick Claxton. And it's put pressure on Ben Simmons that Ben Simmons, frankly, has not heretofore been capable of living up to.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Ben Simmons now, Brian, because a few weeks ago, you and I spoke about this and the fact that Ben Simmons would need to step up in KD's absence, but he really hasn't been aggressive offensively. So can the Nets count on Simmons? And another part of this question, Brian, is can Jacques Vaughn close games with both him and Nick Claxton on the floor at the same time?
I think Nick and Ben intellectually know how they want to play together. I think the Nets have figured ways that the two of them can be effective playing together when Ben is playing well. I think the problem is, frankly, Ben just hasn't been playing well. I think if Ben were playing not even at his peak, but at an appropriate level for him, they can coexist. They have enough shooting on that roster that these guys can coexist and they can find ways. The problem is he's had to come out of games late. Utah, Phoenix, Golden State, obviously Philadelphia, where he's been playing like 3 minutes, 4 minutes out of fourth quarters. That's the issue. The issue is no longer that they can't coexist, because I think they've found ways to work together. The problem is just getting Ben back to his old level, or at least some reasonable approximation thereof.
Nets fans would definitely like to see him back at his old level, especially with Kevin Durant out. Now, earlier this week, Brian, we talked about NBA Rivals Week. Both the Nets and Sixers players, they downplayed any talk of those two teams being rivals before they played. And then we watched the game, and it actually looked like a rivalry game. So how motivated are the Nets to go 2-0 against their crosstown rivals this season, the Knicks, with a win on Saturday night?
Listen, I've never been really convinced of Knicks Nets as a huge rivalry. I just don't buy it. I think it's fabricated. Now, if you're talking about the bygone era, Jason Kidd and Richard Jefferson, yes, those guys absolutely loved to beat up on the Knicks. They thrived on that. But this current iteration, I mean, neither team, you haven't had both teams good at the same time, right? So neither of these teams has been in the playoffs facing the other one while the other one was good. So the only part of this rivalry that you could call a rivalry is proximity. Frankly, the Nets and Sixers dislike each other, frankly, for a number of reasons. That's a rivalry, or at least a budding one. As far as this game, I think the Nets just want to win this game because they need to win any game. They're in desperate straits right now. You see how they've played without Kevin Durant. They can't afford to let this season go the same way last season did, where they lost 16 out of 21 when Kevin was hurt. They just need to win any game, and the Knicks just happen to be in the way.
Knicks just happen to be in the way. There you go. Brian telling you guys, not that much of a rivalry between the Knicks and Nets, but they will play on Saturday night. Should be an interesting one. Both teams needing a win. Nets lost 6 of 8 without Kevin Durant. We'll see if they can get another win. That is Brian Lewis, New York Post Nets beat reporter. Brian, always good to talk some Nets hoops with you. Thanks, man.
Oh, thanks for having me.